Hello, everyone. Welcome to Erindales.xyz Discord server Q&A and critique, hosted by myself as a volunteer, and I'm here with the crowd. We've got Andromeda, how you doing? Dr. Gamber.xyz, Joey C, I'm very happy you're here. Marty as well, Slink, Ixok, No Mike Ixok, and Yosh. So thanks for being here, and welcome to the Q&A. So today we're focusing on 3 topics. One of them is basically looking at Marty's piece of art here in the Q&A, and Slink's 2 pieces of art. So this is going to be fun. We're going to have a little bit of a hive mind, taking a look at composition, color, subject matter, and personal recommendations to improve the art, or just a general praise. And then after that, I'm going to take a look at painterly effects in real time with Eevee using incoming refraction, and also going to take a look at coherent paint strokes with shading inside of Eevee as well. And if I have time, maybe we'll do some concept art. Any topics, any art, or anything you want to contribute, any opinions, you can open up the mic. Just feel free. It's a panel, so have a good day. We'll have a good time for the next hour or so. So let's begin. Who wants to go first, Slink or Marty?
Me, please.
You. All right. Okay, Marty.
Get it over with.
Let's get it done. All right, let me turn you up a bit. Okay, and let's load up your piece. Here it is. So this is from the Blender Royale, right?
Yeah, it's my second shot. And I should note that those are CC0 assets from Sketchfab.
All right.
So it's not legitimate for Blender Royale, but it's my second try at the same theme.
That's okay. It's the extra love piece. Perfectly valid. Okay, cool. All right, guys. So let's hear some opinions. Let's get this show started. I've loaded up Krita and I'm taking a look at this picture. So basically, you've got a key and a lock inside of a box, a cage box. There's nobody avoiding the option of shaking the key out of the box. It's all right.
No.
But I like the concept a lot. Is there a specific meaning to the word omega or not?
Just that it's the end.
The end of the Greek alphabet, no?
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. So, should we start with who would like to give their first opinion before I give an opinion? Does anyone have any words about this piece? What do they feel about it? What do you think was great about it? What could be improved? And close at another positive note. Anyone?
I love the edgeware on the cage and on the
I agree. All right, cool. I like it too. I like the concept, like the general idea as well. And the lighting onto the key is quite nice. I quite like how it highlights the key subtly, and the shading of the general assets are quite good. But I do have some critiques. So first things first, when you use assets from other people, for example, this cage or the key, you got to make sure your textile density is similar. So let me just load up a new layer, paint layer, and get a brush. Why can't I see the brush? Oh, that's because it's underneath. There it is. So let's move it up a layer, go full screen. So when you use an asset, you got to think about textile density. So do you know what textile density is? More or less? Say that again. So basically, the textile density is like this texture that you see around the metal of the lock. If you take a look at the density, you notice that it's almost pixel perfect. But if we take a look at the texture density of, say, here in the edge of the mesh, and also some of the textures on the normals here, or especially here, for example, the textures don't quite have the same density as they do with the other piece. So you got to make sure that, like, if your imported asset doesn't quite have the same detail as the one that you have imported elsewhere, you got to make sure you can throw in an extra layer of roughness or an extra layer of grunge onto the actual asset in the material to kind of like mask their texel densities to make sure that the detail is okay. Well, that's a minor detail really, because the edge was kind of nice. But like, you could either mask it out with depth of field and things like that, or work it through. So, same thing with the geometry density. As you can see, there's a pixelated edge here. It's a game asset. Meanwhile, here we have a very smooth version. So in this case, you could like separate this piece and subdivide it, and just to hide those the geometry masks to make sure that the quality is consistent throughout the entire piece. Because you downloaded the pieces, well, that's the biggest issue. Is like you always have to, depending on the project, you have to prepare your pieces for the final result, final image, to make sure that your downloaded assets are consistent in the parameters. Another thing as well is like maybe the interior is a little bit incoherent with what the design is. Is it like a padded cloth, or is it like just a plastic container? So on the outside we have this metallic, painted metallic concept, but inside we have this plastic or velvet kind of container. So you got to think of like, okay, intentional coherence with the materials. But other than that, I think it's like, as a concept, it looks nice. And maybe if you really wanted to like increase your storytelling, what you could have done is like to added like another cross mesh around the whole piece, but then have a broken cross mesh just at the hole where the key is at, where the light is coming through, to show that it's even harder to take out the key from the actual cage, to kind of like complement the story a little bit, to show that it's very difficult to get to the key, and the key is the key of the Amiga. It's the same key, and you can see it, but you can't get it. And that would be, that's my recommendation to improve it. But I really like this piece. Like, compared to the BR that you did, and this is kind of like night and day, and you made a huge improvement to the concept that you had originally, that you thought up in 45 minutes. And I think that was a good valid effort. So, but in the future, it's just texture consistency with texel density, polygon consistency with its density and curvature, and keeping an eye out on coherence with the realism that you have. And then from that, while your lighting has got great intention, especially that it's lighting up that particular key, I think that's beautiful. Now it's just, well, other elements are just exaggerating your intention. Unless intentionally it's a joke that you can like shake out the key on purpose. So in this case, you could think up something a less serious lighting, or something a bit more obviously humorous. But that's a harder thing to do later. So what do you think, Marty? Was that a bit harsh, or was it okay?
That was good. I particularly hadn't thought about the texel density. I didn't realize. I knew there was something I didn't like, but I couldn't say what it was. And
Your
the
finger
i-
on it.
the idea of the broken cross hatching. I wish I'd thought of that, because that would make that a lot better storytelling. So those are both good pieces of critique. Thank you.
All right, cool. Does someone else have anything they want to add to the piece? Or shall we move on to the next one? But nice work, Marty.
Thank you. I do have one question.
Yeah.
I considered making the lock, taking the gold color out and making it black and white as well. But I decided to use color as a highlighting trick. Which approach do you think would be more consistent with my noir theme? leaving it like this so that it's highlighted so it's obvious that the word omega is what I want you to pay attention to, or darkening it and make it more fit more into the noirish theme?
Actually, I would have highlighted both the key and the lock.
On the other direction.
Yeah, I would have gone the other way, actually, exaggerate. Because the reason being is that if I see the gold of the lock and I see the key and the color coding between the black and white will give me a contrast of like, okay, so this belongs to this, but that's in there and this one's over there. You mentioned film noir though. That's an interesting concept. So I would have actually exaggerated the frame a lot more and gone like full on like angular Dutch angle. I would have done that a lot more.
Yeah, I was just counting on the black and white shadows for my noir effect.
Oh yeah, that looks fine. Another thing I would have done as well is like probably increased the contrast a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, film noir is famous for having like, for example, this area I would have like deeply contrasted quite heavily. So I would use this like an add lighten additive. Whoops, not burn. Dodge. Where's the dodge? There we go. Overlay. There we go, overlay. So I would have brought out even more contrast into the scene. Kind of like to bring out the film noir contrast, because that's what film noir is like. Is this huge amount of like crazy angles, crazy lenses, and also really, really powerful use of shadows and light, and lots of contrast. I would have worked that a little bit, just a little, just to make it pop a bit more. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a valid question. Actually, thought I would have been a bit nitpicky if I worked on those ones as well.
No, that's a good one. I wanted the noirish thing to be a hint of noir, but I think making it fully noir would have been better.
It would have made it pop a lot.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
There we go. All right, Slink, are you ready? Say that we got another opinion?
Yeah, I was just going to say good job, Marty.
Yeah. All right. The lighting is pretty good for the dark area. You're right, Joey. Okay, cool. Okay, so Slink, which piece do you want to go first? Piece A or piece B? Piece A? Okay.
Compare, just yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna make a new piece. Do you want me to give you these notes or this picture, Marty? It's like I guess I can upload this later.
Yeah, I took notes, so that would be nice.
All right. Screen captured and uploaded to the Q&A. I'll put it inside the event. Okay, here is, whoops, all caps. Here is the. But before we continue with your Slink, I just wanted to ask you guys, a community. This is about a couple months ago, there was a huge backlash from the artistic community about NFTs. Now that things have kind of died down, what's your opinion of it now?
Took me a long time to learn how to say this, but I don't know enough to have an opinion.
Wise answer. Joey, it's an exclamation mark.
Yeah, I say, go for it. I don't know.
Yeah, I kind of say the same thing. I can't even form an informed opinion. I have no idea really what it is and what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, you're right. Well, I decided to give it a go this morning. I made 10 sales in 45 minutes. I sold out practically. Couldn't believe it. I just gave it a go, but on a second generation thing. So
So
Joey,
a quick question that would help me understand what opinion I should have is, what exactly are you selling when you sell an NFT? And what is the customer getting?
okay, here's a picture. Imagine you walk into an art gallery and the painter has a picture on the wall. This painter has an infinite collection of these paintings in a stock warehouse, which is his hard drive. His warehouse is full of the same picture. It's his hard drive. But he has this one picture on the wall. So you walk into the gallery as an art collector and you see that one picture on the wall and you're like, hey, I want that picture from this gallery and I want it on my wall in my house, in my mansion. So he pays the artist and he hangs it on his own wall. So now the artist has money because he sold a piece of an infinite piece of art, but he sold it once. And this person has a receipt. The receipt said, I paid the artist this amount of money for that piece of art, but now I can have the right to hang it on my wall. So now someone goes to this mansion and he has a party and somebody sees the painting on his wall. And he looks at the painting and like a really famous woman, she comes in and holding her glass of champagne and she looks at the painting. She says, hey, I would love that. How much are you selling that painting on the wall? So the person who bought the painting from the art gallery, he says, well, I'm selling it for 10 times the price of what I bought it because now there are only 10 of these receipts in the wild and I have one of them. So the famous lady, she buys it for 10 times the price and she collects that piece of art, or she in fact collects the receipt of that infinite piece of art. So this is how the art community works currently today with real paintings on oil-based plastic arts. But now, because we're using a blockchain and IPFS and other systems, you can now make infinite digital copies, something finite, and you can prove that it's finite by using a digital receipt, which is hard to hack because of the blockchain. So that's basically what is an NFT or a non-fungible token. And that's basically what a blockchain does to digital assets. Because without a blockchain, any digital asset is infinite. But with a blockchain, it becomes finite. And because it becomes finite, it can have a value inside an agreed community. Which means I could trade whatever receipt or whatever value I got from this receipt for a hamburger, or pay the electricity, or pay the rent. So that's basically what it is.
Okay, so when you work in this community, like a real gallery, there's a gallery owner equivalent who takes a percentage as a fee?
Correct. So, for example, in this case, the artist gets the fee. So every time, that the guy in the mansion who has the painting, who's selling it to the woman, he just sold it for 10 times the price, but 15% of that goes back to the artist. So this is where the art gallery system of the real world is worse than using an NFT space, because the original creator of that piece of art gets commissions, pretty much. In the real world, the artist who sold the painting, for example, Warhol or something like that, will sell the piece once and then he gets no commissions, typically. So this is where it kind of differs. So the original creator gets a commission from every sale and transaction.
But how do the people who own the infrastructure, the blockchain and the gallery equivalent, how do they make their cut?
So the way the blockchain works, typically it's open source, so nobody owns it. And also it is based on ledgers, so you need somebody to confirm the ledgers. So you have the system called a miner. So what a miner does is they verify the blockchain, or they verify the transactions using algorithms that are hard to hack to make sure that the system works. So if you provide the hardware to process the system in the open source network system, then you should be recompensated for the effort. And to do that, you pay with minting gas fees, or you pay, or you earn as a witness in some different blockchains, depending on the blockchain. And you can be a witness that verifies the content, or you could be a curator. There are different like reward systems for keeping the system alive and running. And that's what makes the blockchain decentralized, so that it's owned by no one. And it's very hard to kill and almost impossible to hack because it's not centralized. So the people who manage it, anybody who runs like the platforms or the hardware to run it, they get rewards or a cut, a small percentage, which is the fee, for example, for managing the system, including people who run the websites or whatever. These things called dApps. So it's kind of like a digitized complex ecosystem of the same way that we use electricity utility bills, right? Everybody pays the electrical company. Electrical company provides the electricity, but the electrical company takes the money with a small percentage tax rebate, I guess you could say, for providing the service to the city. And so they get their money back for the service that they provide, pretty much. So,
Okay, with that said, I do have an opinion because that's enough. I don't see a problem with it conceptually. It sounds like it's a good way for artists to make a living. There may be issues with the way the infrastructure is put together, but those are technical problems that can be resolved.
and that is the biggest counter argument that happened over the past few months, was that it's not green. It requires a lot of electricity to use. It requires a lot of hardware to create and manage. But this is also a big debate because Netflix requires a huge amount of services and electricity and infrastructure. Visa and MasterCard require huge amounts of electricity and have a massive carbon footprint. And so, like, the argument that there's a big carbon footprint for this type of technology is comparatively difficult to argue against. There was quite a big blowback around it, but there's also a lot of statistics and science around it. And also, this is second generation. This is not Bitcoin. The Bitcoin, yes, is very extremely expensive on the ecological system and has a huge carbon footprint. But when you have a second generation like Tezos, for example, or something like Hive, these are second generation that runs on a liquid version of the blockchain. So that a lot of the transactions, for example, the fungible transaction, things like that, are basically about the same carbon footprint as tweeting a tweet every time you make a transaction, as liking a tweet. It's the same carbon footprint as any social network, with the added benefits of an actual economy. So it's kind of like you got to think, okay, so do I use a first generation like a concept, for example, Bitcoin? Well, try not to, and use a second generation one like Tezos or something else, or second generation Ethereum if you want to be a bit more green. So that's the other counter argument that a lot of people had in the Twitter sphere and elsewhere in the art community. I mean, yeah, as the safe answer is you don't know enough. Nobody knows enough. I don't know enough. But that's just basically from what I researched. So I thought I'd give it a go this morning, and I sold out. Couldn't believe it. It's a beautiful feeling. And I bought, in turn, 4 different pieces of art from another artist, and there we go. A different thing. So I just wanted to wonder what. I guess that. Yeah, what do you think?
So, as a technologist, my problem isn't the ecological footprint. It's what happens if the people who guarantee the blockchain go away, or the blockchain gets broken, or all those security related issues. And the problem with that as a problem is, well, that's a problem with any kind of thing you do with software. So I'm back to, okay, it sounds like a good idea.
All right.
Actually, I know stuff about blockchain, just not NFTs in particular. I mean, blockchain, for it to have those security issues, it's almost as if you have to have more bad apples in the system than you have good apples.
That's
And that's where
absolutely not true. Blockchain can be defeated pretty easily by people who know what they're doing.
but you have to change the ledger on over 51% of the people who have the ledger.
Yeah.
You're not
And I mean, you
thinking.
could do
You're
that.
not
That's
thinking
possible.
about denial of service attacks.
Oh, DDoSing. Oh, yeah, and that would actually reduce the effectiveness of the blockchain, thus damaging the blockchain's services. I didn't
Right.
think of that actually.
I used to do this for a living.
Debating this stuff.
Wait, what?
But anyway, I still think it's a good idea, even with those concerns. Those are concerns you have to take into account.
Yeah, that's right. The concept though is like, I think it's interesting. But Joey has an opinion. He says he still thinks crypto is mostly unnecessary. The only thing it has going for it is that real currency doesn't, is the veil of anonymity. I know 2 people who got Ethereum stolen by their wallet company, and it still happens. Yeah.
That is a crypto problem. That's not necessarily this community, like the NFT community problem, but
This is the piece.
that is almost a human problem. You're almost looking to change human nature at that point.
That's true. In my opinion, when it comes to cryptocurrency, though, or blockchain, sorry, not just cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency maybe is a big debate, but as a blockchain, I like the concept that digital assets can be finite. I think that's a really interesting idea, which I think is kind of like the next step up after digital assets and media and piracy. And so, for example, if you could prove that you're the creator, and if you are the original creator, and if your assets have limited copies, that's a nice concept to have, to be respected as a producer, because finite production creates value. Infinite production decreases that value. And if you and nothing's really ever infinite, you know. But so Slink likes the concept of NFT. Joey agrees with that. His problem with NFTs is the same as crypto, I guess, because NFT is kind of like a side thing outside of the blockchain. You're right.
Well, blockchains aren't always anonymous, though, especially because a lot of the time, like, I mean, I look at Bitcoin's ledgers all the time to figure out when whales move their money. I can be like, oh, I know something's going to happen. Why? Because I saw like 6 people move, something like $90 million worth of Bitcoin. So it is anonymous, yes, but it's also like it's like walking into a chat room and everyone just has numbers for a username, and you're like, okay, but you still see what they're saying.
Yeah, you still see what every single person says. That is quite right. So it's kind of anonymous, but not anonymous. It's kind of an interesting concept. Anyway, all right, let's move on. Sorry, Slink, for keeping you waiting about your art. This was a really interesting debate. I hope I didn't bore you guys with my metaphor. And
oh no, your story was very prompt, actually.
All right. So, and Rob, Joey, I think you have a good opinion about it too. Slink mentions, the thing is about art, is it really worth it? Is buying a receipt worth it? It's the same, right? Is buying a hamburger worth it? That's the counter argument. Maybe yes, maybe no. Right? Supporting art totally is worth it. That's the other counter argument, yeah.
Well, whoever spent the money, it's worth it.
But there are many ways to do it, you're right. There are many ways. That's why I think, like, if you can buy the art on Gumroad, do it. Why not? If you can buy the art directly from pinging the artist on Twitter and saying, hey, can I buy your piece? Do it. Pay them through PayPal. Great. But I don't know a lot of people who do that, who don't host art on Gumroad or anything. So it's kind of like it's a movement, I suppose, a digital movement. So, but I agree that you should support your artists one way or another. Support the developers, support the people who do the work, who create things by liking their comment and liking and comment on their art, following their users, sponsoring them on Patreon, sponsoring them with Gumroad, sponsoring them with anything else, and things like that. But yeah, there is some absurd concepts with NFT, like Slink mentions about the punk here, crypto punks. Yeah, that I don't understand. To be honest, you're right. It's not worth it in this case. So, okay, cool. So, Slink, let's take a look at your piece. Hope you guys found it interesting. Let's make a new piece of art. Right, Slink, could you give me a little bit of context about your piece?
I don't know. I kind of wanted to do something. I saw on YouTube a guy who made like a float, and I'm like, "Oh, I can do it in Blender." Then I did that.
It's like a floating house.
Yes.
Nice. All right. Who wants to take a stab at it first?
Please not me.
I'm sorry. Let me
Where
take a
is
look.
it? I'm not. Is it?
Water?
This is if you want, you can see it on my stream. But up in the chat in the Q&A&Critique, you can find it there. I will
You can
also.
also send it in event if you
Alright.
wanted to.
Ah,
Right, sending to the event now.
The water and the sky look good.
Thank
Alright.
you.
So make one for realism.
Yeah, I agree.
Like something about realistic rendering I just thought about recently is like when I began with Blender and I tried to do something realistic, it was just hard, and just nowadays I just make something like this under a day or something.
You're figuring it out. You're getting it much better. I quite like the
Yeah.
wet wood that you have as well on the
Yep.
deck here. That's nice. The sky is great. The water's great. The wet wood is nice. The drums are cool.
Yes.
Very nice.
Drums are the only essence I didn't made. I downloaded from Model Haven.
Oh, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I just was lazy.
The sky is in HDRI of some kind.
Yes, it is HDR from it was called CC0 Textures, now it's Ambient CG.
Ah, yes, I know. All right, are you ready? Does anyone want to start with a negative critique or like?
Yes,
Yeah.
Joe likes
Joey,
the
yeah,
haze.
yeah. All right.
who likes
I'm going to the
haze?
chat. I'm going to the chat.
Yes, somebody notice it.
Oh,
Somebody notice it.
he likes the slight haze in the shadow to show the distance. Yes, the
Someone
atmosphere.
notice it.
It's one
My
of
life
those.
goal is achieved.
Your goal is achieved. Well done. With the water over here, right? You can see it most.
Yeah, it was just a rendered mispass because I wasn't having it for the metrics.
I also quite like the bloom as well. It's kind of nice with the light bouncing around. Okay, so here's my first.
Yeah, people notice it.
That's good. All right, so my initial critique is the UVs of the wood. Your texture on the wood is perpendicular to the planks of the wood.
Yes.
That's the initial thing. Is like it's very hard to cut wood against the grain or perpendicular to the grain. So you have it correct here and down at the bottom, but you don't have it correct on the side of the walls here. So you need to make sure that your grain is pointing up and down and going along with the planks. So that's the first one. Same with these poles here. It's going to be very hard to cut a wide trunk of a pole, so the grain will have to go up in a vertical sense. Another thing as well is like, at first I missed that these were drums. The color of the drums is blue, just like the water. So in order to contrast this, I would have made them like white or red or yellow, kind of like make them stick out, or even just black, to kind of like make them contrast against the water. So color, like if part of your story is that it's a floating house on drums, so I would have highlighted the drums a lot more with like a bright color of some kind. That's my next recommendation. And also on top of that, this entire wall in the shadow is the hero. But this part over here is the interesting part. So as you can see, you've got almost more of this wall than you have of the interesting part. So I would have rotated the entire house just a little bit so that this wall only takes up a space of like 1/3 maximum. So this wall would have been here in the rotation, and then the rest of the house, we would be able to see like this, what's inside the window, a bit more of what's on the deck. Maybe you could put like a deck chair onto the deck to tell a bit more of the story. And I would have rotated the house a bit more to give a bit more focus that somebody's living on the water. So as a story, I don't want to see a blank wall in the shadow. As part, like, okay, cool. What about the rest of this? Like, is this an animation? Is the house turning around? Is the camera zooming in a bit more? If it was an animation, great. But since this is a still image, you're going to need to focus a bit more on your composition of how you've positioned the house to bring out the story. Just a bit. But all in all, I really like the concept and the water that you did with the spray, the mist, composition of the colors. The idea, I think, is great. Huge potential. What do you guys think?
And also, I don't know if anybody noticed, but around the boat is a bit of foam, just like where the birds are. Maybe somebody noticed or didn't.
Around here?
I did it with like geometry nodes.
Oh, here.
Like you have attributes like where to see the foam, and I just used that as an attribute in Shade Editor.
Very nice. Around here, right?
Yes. Then I make like then a few other procedural shaders, and it was foam.
Very cool. Cool. Yeah, because it does feel very grounded in the water, which is nice. And I love the translucency material that you have going on here. All right. Okay, so hopefully that wasn't too harsh. And
No, it wasn't.
cool.
I had harsher critics.
If you want, I'll take a capture of this.
Yeah.
But your lighting, your atmosphere, the grounding in the water, the concept is all great. So up there, here are some of the notes. Should we take a look at your next piece? Are you ready?
Yes, I am ready.
Oh, look, Blank is here. Nice to see you here as well. How you been, Blank? Right, next piece. This is from your Blender Royale, correct?
Yes, it's the piece with extra love.
All right, the extra love piece.
Yes.
Extra love is always important. Everybody needs a bit of extra love. So in this piece, I'm going to... I like the idea of that he's a monster and how you made the monster. I just wish I could see more. And he's breaking out of a prison, right? Or he's just walking in the door.
It's more about a containment chamber.
Ah.
He's breaking out of a containment chamber. He was held in for amount of years.
And how did you do the materials on his body? That's quite nice.
I didn't. Thank you, whoever did it on Sketchfab.
Oh. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop into 3D right now, actually. So let me just save the scene. Q&A. Version saved. I'll make a new scene. I'm going to quickly recreate the image. All right?
I could just send you the blend file.
Oh, sure, sure. That might save me some time.
If I find it. I
All right.
find it, but
Let me know when you send it over.
this I sent it in the event channel so everybody could check it out if you
Okay,
want to see my
downloading.
beautiful models.
Okay. So in this piece, I'm going to set down the groundwork. Basically, one is composition, like storytelling.
Ah, yeah, I forgot to pack it in. Wait a minute. Selling that I pack on
Pack all, yeah.
files. So I forgot that that was a thing,
Yeah.
and now it's too big.
Oh, too big to send over Discord.
Yes.
I could throw in some other random textures, maybe.
Wait, I zip it.
There was like a floor. What else do we have?
It was a tile texture, so tiles.
Oh, tiles. I could turn on blend kit and maybe use that instead. Blend it
How much was the maximal limit in Discord?
with
I
nitro.
believe it's 10 with well, with nitro it's 100.
Okay, then I
Usually
set like
10.
70 megabytes to compress.
Okay, and what was the wall? The wall is like a plaster? Or was it linoleum?
Yes, now send a zip. Hopefully it works. If it isn't, I just send a texture. I guess I sent then texture. Oh.
I do have a question. How did you get that nice sort of dark seam between the wall and the ceiling there?
What dark seam?
It is just a point where it's very dark going along I guess you call it the
Okay.
place where the wall and the ceiling sort of meet in the picture. It's
Right here.
I don't know. It's
It's a good question.
And
That's
you
a really
don't
good question. I
you
just
don't know how you got that?
I just have wall and then two planes for ceiling and floor, and that's it. And
Oh,
that's
I guess it's
a
ambient
shadow?
occlusion, some sort of fall off that's happening.
yeah, probably.
Oh, I thought it was purposeful.
Or maybe I don't know.
Containment
Like I made
breach?
like the textures in Armor Paint, and maybe Armor Paint exported ambient occlusion pass textures. I don't know.
I mean,
Sorry,
possibly.
I'm trying to extract the file. Containment breach. Do you guys know what a zip containment breach means?
I just name it Contain Breach.
Ah, okay.
SCP-173, that's a specimen. Then Contain Breach because it's breaching containment.
Okay. There's not an
For me, it
error.
makes sense.
Unavailable data, it says.
Unavailable data when trying to unzip a zip, right?
Maybe because it's still downloading? How big is the file?
184, 48 megabyte, kilobyte.
Kilobytes or
Whatever.
megabytes?
It says kilobytes on my PC, but it's
Blank
on
says,
Discord it's bigger than.
just make him use a new texture or something.
Yeah,
Alright, so let's just see what materials we have. What are these black pieces?
I can also it's raw. Fucking raw.
Right, so let me show the ceiling material. Searching. No results. Look for roof. Searching. There we go. This is this wood looking roof. Now let's look for a wall. Do this like kind of like this white stucco wall. Yep. Load that up. Unpacking the files. The environment map needs to be changed. right? The easy HDR. Just delete that.
I
We'll append one that I have. Is this interior, right? Make a new one.
have an interior HDRI in here. Wait.
Environment texture. We'll just load up. And let's go for environment. Let's look for interior.
Peppermint. That's
Which one?
peppermint something. Wait a minute.
It looks very similar. Photo Studio Broadway.
Peppermint power plant. That was
Oh,
the
power
HDR I
plant.
used. Yes,
Power plant.
I got it from H. Yes, that exactly that.
Okay. Download that.
Wait, since when? Since when are HDR havens on Blender Kit?
I don't know. It's there now.
Ah, good to know.
Okay, cool. So that's added in. Relatively dark. This door frame is kind of a metal, right?
Yes. And there's also a door with a cool SCP logo. Wait a minute. I did an Arbor Paint, but the door is
Okay.
open so you don't see it.
Okay, so we're there. We're in the world. We're all good. Let me just turn on the bloom. Yep, everything's good. Turn on the half trace res. Ambient occlusion is good. And everything is fine. Shadows, we'll just bump the shadow quality up to double. And now let's just see how our lighting is, which is right now. Do we have any cache lighting, indirect lighting?
No, I rendered in Cycles and I made also the HDRI darker, like 0.8, 0.08.
0.8.
0.08 strength for the HDRI. Very dark, like really,
Really dark.
yeah.
0.08.
Ambient.
Like this. Alright, that looks relatively similar to what we had. Let's just make sure I have everything is fine. What type of glass should we throw in there? There you go. Uber shade of fake glass. There we go. Done. Okay, so this is the shot. We've rebuilt the whole thing, pretty much. And it crashed. Oh, man.
Yes. Oh,
You should be able to get the autosave from that.
Yeah, I'll have
if you
the
wait there
autosave.
long enough.
Give me a second as I load it up.
The best is when you just finish doing a big thing and you're like, I'm finally done. And then you
And then-
touch like a menu.
And then it's closed.
It's just
It's
gone.
gone.
And you're like, really? You feel so defeated.
There we go. So, scene world needs to be 0.8. 0.08. And I'm just going to put on the passepartout on the camera, so we just have the composition. Turn off the overlays. Go full screen. Oh, and the door is still pink, so let me just fix the doorway. It may have crashed because I had the asset browser open. So let me just quickly fix it up. Throw in the door material, metal plates. And switch out of it because then it's more stable. There we go. Cool. So this is the shot. This is what you had. So tell me, Slink, what do you think
Also,
could be improved? Huh?
Also, fun fact: the scene is animated, so if you press play, it should animate.
Oh, cool. The lights and everything.
Yes. Red blinking light to indicate that something broke out, and some flashing strobe lights.
That he's a monster.
Yes.
Okay. Does
That
anyone...
he's going to kill all of humanity.
All of humanity is going to kill. Oh, Blank says the properties and outliner on the left has really thrown them off. For a second, it felt like you're looking into a Blender mirror. Yes, I prefer it on the left. Oh, the door has a logo. Okay, cool. I see, here's the logo. All right, so my first recommendation is camera composition. So your camera shot is quite a wide angle, as if he's stepping out, but in this case, your hero is the monster. So what I would do, first and foremost, is focus on the monster. Focus on the monster, and since he's big and scary, tilt up to the monster. And he's framed inside the doorway, so I would focus on that. And I would also probably change the lens of the camera, kind of using 50 lens. I'm going to make him really big and scary by using a 20mm lens to bring out the concept that he's like big and freaky, and he's just stepping out the door, boom, like this. And I would also make sure that he's taking up a relatively close-up shot. If not, maybe even 18 lenses, 18mm.
I'm scared.
There you go. So I'm looking up at the monster, stepping out the doorway, and I can frame his shoulders or height with the line in the background there. So that's my first thing, is I would frame the doorway kind of left and right to kind of feel like he was in, but now he's going to get out, and frame on the monster directly, kind of to show him that the key aspect is the doorway opening up and the monster. That's the first thing. After that, notice that the image is very gray. So even if I press play and the lights start changing and everything, it's still very gray, not a lot of contrast. So what I would do is, in the 3D space here, I'm going to go all out crazy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a rim light, very strong backlight and a rim light, to bring out, whoops, let me turn off tweak, just to bring out the character from here. So like this. And I'm going to use this in like a big bright red and make it really strong. Boom. To show the frightening concept of his contours of the actual character. Like this a little bit. So that's the first thing I'll do, is like make sure my lighting brings out a very strong contrast so that he's in the shadow and everything else is in the light. Nice and strong. So that's one of them. So the lighting is like, okay, so you can use just one simple light to bring out his contour and shadow. And on top of that, maybe even like if I really wanted to, I could like go even a bit more stylized power, and I could like bring out a highlight of like maybe instead of using just the wall in the background, I would use an actual plane. And in this plane, I'll position it about here more or less. First things first, new material. Second things after that, make sure it's transparent. So shadow mode none. And on top of that, go to my emission strength, make it like a very similar color as that red background, and put the emission way up into like 10 or something like that. So that we can see him like it's a very bright light, maybe even brighter, the bloom. Boom. Okay, so that's probably a bit too much, but you get the idea, is that now I'm using atmosphere to bring out the brightness and the silhouette of this crazy monster in the doorway. So it's just a recommendation, like it's where you can use lighting and contrast to bring out the character in the doorway, to frame him, make it minimal, make it really big, to kind of show that he's coming out the doorway. Or even like, and you can work different shots or different things, or like for example, bring like he steps on the ground with his feet, and the camera pans and rises, and then we see his face as we zoom into his face, and his face is kind of crazy. You could also throw in another, huh?
He doesn't move. He just kind of floats around, I guess.
That's okay.
Like its description is like it's just moving. Like it just moves around. It just hovers around. It doesn't hover. It slides over the ground more.
All right.
I guess it can do that.
And you can also use another spotlight, for example, on the side of his head, like this, and you make it nice and strong. So 100 watts, and I would make it either blue, kind of a cold color, to show that he's a cold, hard killer, or make it yellow just to kind of populate them, maybe, or green even, you know, make him show that he's a little bit more sick, or a little bit more mysterious, a purple color, or even like aggressive. And another red lamp here. You change the size and the angle of the light a little bit, bring out the penumbra so that you don't see the edge of that light. And you use a custom distance. Eevee's awesome for this, because then if I don't want the light on the edge of the frame here, I can make the length a lot shorter, to about 1 meter, for example. Or even, there you go, 1 meter is fine. So it only hits his head, but not the door frame. In cycles, you can't do that. So from that, so with that, you can use like artistic direction to bring out his head, to show that he's kind of like an evil monster of some kind, with the colors or whatever you want to use to bring out the contour of his shape. Just a little bit. Yeah. So now, like, if I zoom in even more, we can see the shape of his head is kind of a scary round shape. And the colors kind of making me feel like, oh my gosh, is he like a toxic monster? Yeah, so you can work your light, work the contrast, work the angles, and work the composition to tell a stronger story. That's what you
I
can do.
kind of did that now, and I don't know, I just did that, I guess.
Yeah.
Kind of changed some stuff here. I don't know, what do you think about it?
Let me
Like,
take
I
a look.
streamed on Discord.
Let me take a look. All right. It's in the Q&A. Maybe more dramatic lighting on the monster to draw focus. That's what Joey mentioned. Another thing is depth of field. That's a good one to use. And Fatfish hates the cyberpunk heads. They've sold for hundreds of millions of dollars. And a 60-year-old could draw them in MS Paint. And it uses a lot of power to own something like that. Yeah. In that case, I don't understand that from the NFT space. But yeah, you get it. I guess we can throw in some cool depth of focus. Let's see if we can do that. Go into the camera, turn on depth of field, focus on the head. Hold down, press S, and then onto the head. And I'll bring my f-stops way low, so that super crazy big. And then I'll throw on some blades, like 6 blades, because he's from the devil. Who knows? And go into my depth of field settings, and turn on jitter of the camera to upgrade that. And yeah, cool. A little bit of depth of field. What else? More dramatic lighting. Another light that you could do is like have another spotlight from underneath to bring out his features, but since it's a flat texture, it might not work. Like a white light bouncing up from the ground or something like that, to emphasize how big he is, kind of like the Frankenstein lighting setup, where you have a light underneath the face. And yeah, different things like that. Let's
So
go.
would you? I stream like I kind of applied all those tips now, and maybe you can see it like in my stream on
Oh, here it
Discord.
is. Here it is. Yep. Loading. Yep, you're improving the camera. That's good. You made more red light in the background. Nice. Now just to focus on the contrast. And then if you get your contrast okay, then you're good. More exposure. Or in this case, you could use your curves. Pop out the whites and darken the darks. Kind of like an S shape. A very quick tip. There you go. Oops. No.
Actually, something I've noticed, your materials have what looks like an infinite roughness. It didn't occur to me till now, but I'm like, doesn't really have any specularity, even though it's the materials. Like even plaster has maybe a roughness of 430 or something, or 0.432.
It has specularity, like the floor has, but I don't know.
Yeah, I see it in the
Like,
ceiling in the picture that but I don't see it on the walls.
It must be the material. So I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna save this as a revision. Anyway, guys, well, I think we're gonna have to wrap it up now because it's been a whole entire hour and a bit. Thanks for the patience with the slow start.
Sorry for coming late.
Oh, no problem. And Yush, Ixok, Marty, Galich, Joey, so cool that you're here. Blank as well, Slink, thanks for the art as well. And for sharing the opinions as well by NFTs. That was a nice conversation. And I guess I'll see you guys next week, same time, same place. And I will stop the stream here.
Okay.
Thanks
Yep,
for your
it's
time.
good to be here, and hope for something good next week.
Next year, yeah. Woohoo.
I was about to say next year. I'm like,
next month.
yeah, it wasn't that much of a party.
Yeah, a yearly
Thanks, Chris.
event. No problem. Pleasure's mine.